Ladies and gentlemen, once again I welcome you to channel SoulThoughts. Today we'll be talking about liberation from material planets. It's the continuation of my previous video in which we had been already talking about the same. Prabhupada, in his book Beyond Birth and Death, mentions that the Jnanis and Yogis are generally impersonalists. And although they attain the temporary form of liberation by merging into the impersonal effulgence, which is the spiritual sky according to Srimad Bhagavatam, their knowledge is not considered pure. Now, people who are impersonalists, that means that due to ignorance, these people always argue that Supreme Lord, that is Lord Krishna, ultimately has no form, which is absolutely untrue, as Lord Krishna himself has mentioned the same in Adhyaya 7 and Shloka 24 in the Bhagavad Gita. By penances, austerities and meditations, they can rise up to the platform of the Supreme Absolute. But as has been explained earlier, they again fall down to the material world because they have not taken Krishna's personal features seriously. Unless one worships the lotus feet of Krishna, he again has to descend to the material platform. The ideal attitude should be, I am your eternal servitor. Please let me somehow engage in your service. Krishna is called Ajita, that means who is unconquerable. But according to Srimad Bhagavatam, one with this attitude easily conquers the Supreme. Srimad Bhagavatam also recommends that we give up this futile process to measure the Supreme. We cannot even measure the limitations of the space, but to speak of Supreme, it is not possible to measure length and breadth of Krishna by one's minuscule knowledge, and one who arrives at this conclusion is considered intelligent by Vedic literature. One should come to understand submissively that he is a very insignificant segment of the universe. Abandoning the endeavor to understand the Supreme by limited knowledge or mental speculation, we should become submissive and hear of the Supreme through the authoritative sources such as Bhagavad Gita or through the lips of a realized soul. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is hearing about God from the lips of Lord Krishna himself. In this way, Arjuna set the criterion for understanding the Supreme by submissive hearing. It is our position to hear Bhagavad Gita from the lips of Arjuna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. After hearing it, it is necessary to practice this acquired knowledge in daily life. My dear Lord, you are unconquerable. The devotee always prays this. God is unconquerable, but he is conquered by devotee who abandons mental speculation and listens to authoritative sources. According to Brahma Samhita, there are two ways of acquiring knowledge: the ascending process and descending process. By ascending process, one is elevated by knowledge acquired by himself. In this way, one thinks, I don't care for any authorities or books. I'll attain knowledge myself by meditation, philosophy, etc. In this way, I will understand God. The other process is the descending process, which involves receiving knowledge from higher authorities. Brahma Samhita states that if one takes to the ascending process and travels at the speed of mind and wind for millions of years, he will still end up not knowing anything. For him, the subject matter will remain elusive and inconceivable. But that subject matter is given in Bhagavad Gita, Ananyaya Chetam. Krishna says to meditate on him without deviation from the path of devotional service in submission. For one who worships him in this way, Tasyam Sulabham, I become easily available. This is the process if one works for Krishna 24 hours a day. Krishna cannot forget him. By becoming submissive, he can attract the attention of God. As Guru Maharaj Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati used to say, don't try to see God. Is God to come and stand before us like a servant just because we want to see him? This is not the submissive way. We have to oblige him by our love and by our service. The proper process for approaching Krishna was given to humanity by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, his first disciple. Rupa Goswami was a minister in Mohammedan government, but he left the government to become a disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he first went to see the Lord, Rupa Goswami approached him and said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto this Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, who is magnanimous than any other avatars, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rupa Goswami called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the most munificent, the most charitable personality, because he was offering the most precious thing of all very cheaply, and that is love of God. We all want Krishna and are all hankering after him. Krishna is most attractive, the most beautiful, the most opulent, the most powerful, and of course, most learned. That is the subject of our hankering. We are hankering after the beautiful, the powerful, the learned, the wealthy. Krishna is the reservoir of all of this, so we need only turn our attention towards him and we'll get everything. Everything, whatever we want. Whatever is our heart's desire will be fulfilled by this process of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada writes in the book that for one who dies in Krishna consciousness, as stated, before entrance into Krishna Loka, the supreme abode where Krishna resides, is 100% guaranteed. At this point, one may ask, what is the advantage in going to that planet? And Krishna himself answers in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 shloka 15 that after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to temporary world which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. The material world is certified by Shri Krishna, the Creator, as Dukhalyam. Dukhalyam means a place full of miseries, जो दुखों से भरा है. How then can we make it comfortable? Is it possible to make this world comfortable by the so-called advancement of science? No, this is not possible. As a result, we do not even wish to know what these miseries are. The miseries have been talked about in previous videos again and again. Birth, old age, disease and death. These four miseries. And because we cannot make a solution to them, we try to set them aside. Science has no power to solve these miseries that are all. They divert our attention to making of spaceships or atomic bombs. The solutions to these problems is given definitely in Bhagavad Gita, if one attains to Krishna's platform, he does not have to return again to this earth of birth and death. We should try to understand that this place is full of miseries. It takes a certain amount of developed consciousness to understand this. Cats and dogs cannot understand that they are suffering. Man is a rational animal, but his rationality is being used to further his animalistic propensities, used instead of to find out how to get liberation from this material world. How to get liberation from this miserable condition. Here, Krishna has explicitly stated that one who comes to him will never be reborn to suffer miseries again. Those great souls who come to him have attained the highest perfection of life, which elevates the living entity from the suffering of conditional existence. One of the differences between Krishna and an ordinary being is that an ordinary entity can be in only one place at one time. But Krishna can be everywhere in the universe and yet also in his own abode simultaneously. Krishna's abode in the transcendental kingdom is called Goloka Vrindavan. The Vrindavan, which one is in India, is that same Vrindavan descended on this earth. When Krishna descends himself by his own internal potency, his dham or his abode also descends. In other words, Krishna descends on this earth, he manifests himself in that particular land. Despite this, Krishna's abode remains eternally in the transcendental. In one of the verses, Krishna proclaims that one who comes to his abode in the Vaikuntha never has to take birth again in the material world. Prabhupada mentions in his book that such a person is called Mahatma. The word Mahatma is generally heard in the West in connection with Mahatma Gandhi. But we should understand that Mahatma is not the title of a politician. Rather, Mahatma refers to the first class Krishna conscious man who is eligible to enter into the abode of Krishna. Mahatma's perfection is this: to utilize the human form of life and resources of nature to extricate himself from cycle of birth and death. An intelligent person knows that he does not want miseries, but they are inflicted upon him by force. As stated or as mentioned earlier, we are always in a miserable condition due to this mind, body, natural disturbances or other living entities. There is always some kind of misery inflicted upon us. This material world is meant for misery only. Unless the misery is there, we cannot come to Krishna consciousness. Miseries actually indirectly help us to elevate us to Krishna consciousness. An intelligent man questions why these miseries are inflicted on him by force. However, modern civilization's attitude is, let me suffer, let me cover it by some intoxication, that's all. Let me have some scotch so that my all worries are gone. But as soon as intoxication is over, the miseries definitely return back. It is not possible to make a solution to miseries of life by artificial intoxication. The solution is made by Krishna consciousness. One may point out that although the devotees of Krishna are trying to enter Krishna's planet, everyone else is interested in going to the moon. Isn't going to the moon also perfection? the tendency to travel to other planets is always present in the living entity. One name for living entity is Sarvagata, which means one who wants to travel everywhere. The travel is part of nature of living entity. The desire to go to the moon is not a new thing. The yogis are also interested in entering the higher planets. But in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 shloka 16, Krishna says that from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. The universe is divided into higher, middle and lower planetary systems. Krishna points out that even if one enters into the highest planet of all, called Brahma Loka, there is still repetition of birth and death. Other planets in the universe are full of living entities. We should not think that we are here, that all the other planets are vacant. From experience, we can see that no place on the earth is vacant of living entities. If we dig deep down into the earth, we'll find worms. If we go deep into the water, we will find aquatics like fishes, crocodiles, and so on. And if we go into the sky, we find so many birds. How is it possible to conclude that planets have no living entities? But Krishna points out that even if we enter into those planets where great demigods reside, we will still be subjected to death. Again, Krishna repeats, upon reaching his planet, one does not need to take birth again. Yes, about attaining our eternal life full of bliss and knowledge, we have forgotten that this is actual aim of life, our self-interest. Why have we forgotten? We have simply been entrapped by the material glitter, by skyscrapers, big factories and political play. Although we know that however big we build skyscrapers, we will not be able to live here indefinitely. We should not spoil our energy in building mighty industries and cities to further entrap ourselves in the material nature. Rather, our energy should be used to develop Krishna consciousness in order to attain a spiritual body whereby we may enter into Krishna's planet. Krishna consciousness is not a religious formula or some spiritual recreation. It is the most important part of living entity. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.